This is the Catholic Family Podcast, and I'm very happy and honored, as always, to be joined by Mario Derksen of Novus Ordo Watch. And we've got a doozy of a show today. As everyone knows, I think probably everyone in the world, I've seen many people who have nothing to do with the Catholic faith or religion at all talking about Bergoglio's comments from earlier this week, or I guess the end of last week. Pretty shocking stuff, though. Is it really? I guess that's part of what I want to talk about. It's shocking in terms of what an actual pope would say. Is it shocking from Bergoglio? Is it shocking from the Novus Ordo? We'll discuss. We hope to be joined by Father Thomas Ojeka as well. He unfortunately is having some issues with his network. So please, everyone, say a prayer right now. Just say a prayer that his phone works, that his network can come on, because we'd love to have him on. And actually, even as we get going now, I really want to promote his book. It's fantastic. It has a lot of this type of information in it. He had a long journey from the Novus Ordo, 9 years in the Novus Ordo seminary, and eventually got ordained. He went to seminary with Bishop Sanborn, Bishop Dolan, and was ordained a few years ago. It's called My Treasured Mistake, and you can find it on gloriousHeritageBooks.com. So that's Father Thomas Ojeka's book. We also hope to be joined by WM Review. That's SD Wright of WM Review. So he'll come on hopefully here soon. I think he's putting his kids to bed. It's pretty cool, Mario. We have you're streaming from the US. I'm in Germany. Sean SD Wright is in England, and hopefully Father Ojeka from Nigeria. So everyone in the comment section, please let us know as we go where you're from. We're really happy to have you all here. And yeah, I guess Mario, how you doing? First of all, you doing well?
Oh, not bad. I'm just living the dream here, or the nightmare with Jorge Bergoglio.
Oh man, he gives you a job, doesn't he, Mario? I mean, he just makes it so that it never stops, right? It never stops.
Yeah, I'll have to say though, he makes it fairly easy.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Ratzinger was usually way more subtle, and Bergoglio just comes right out and says, all religions lead to God, and then it's tragic, but also funny to see, how his Pope splainers then jump into action and try to find ways to at least soften the blow, or do damage control, try to convince you that he didn't say what he said, or if he did say it, he didn't mean it.
Well, they changed the translation too, right? They changed the translation and changed it back, and they're trying to cover up for the Pope. Mario.
Yeah, the Vatican had released an English translation that was incorrect and was clearly trying to do damage control. Unfortunately for them, all the other translations in the other languages, they were all correct. So it was just by comparing the different translations, you could see right away, as well as the Italian original, which they had on their website. Everybody could see for himself. This is not really what he said. And I guess we can get to that if you want to look at the different translations in just a minute. When I looked at the video, I figured, well, hey, the best translation probably you're going to get is the one that Bergoglio's assistant gave right then and there, because in Singapore, they pretty much all speak English, okay, at least, right, most people. So that was the language used in that symposium, in that conference where Bergoglio was. And since he doesn't speak English, he had a translator. And he spoke in Italian. He's clearly fluent in Italian, maybe proficient, although his native language is Spanish. And so he just spoke in Italian, and the assistant translated it on the spot for everyone there. So unless somebody there in Singapore spoke Italian, the only way they would have known what Bergoglio said was by means of the English translation. And the translation that his assistant gave was correct. So it is only the translation later found on the Vatican website, which has since been revised. It was only that is the only mistranslation in this whole thing, is the one that later showed up on the Vatican website.
It's interesting. And the only mistranslation was in English, right? So I think it's fascinating that, I think Bergoglio really doesn't like the English speakers, the rigid Americans. And so it's kind of like they know the people who are going to cause them trouble are your semi-trads, your traditionalists in English speaking countries. It's what it seems like, at least.
I find it really mysterious how that happened. So for one thing, you could have if you're a translator, your job is to translate it into English. You could just go by what his own assistant said, or at least compare it to that, right? Do your own translation, and then compare it to what he said, just to make sure it jives, right? Or if there is a difference, a divergence, then you need to take a look and say, okay, well, what's going on? What is the right way? Which is the right way to translate it? So like I said, I don't understand what whoever translated this at first on the Vatican website, like, what was that person thinking? Because it's 2024, we live in an age of the internet. You can very quickly and very easily find out it's a mistranslation. And it wasn't the kind of mistranslation where you would say, oh, yeah, I guess you could translate it that way, or yeah, that's ambiguous. Or no, it wasn't. It was just clearly meant to do damage control for Francis. So how long? I mean, in fact, that makes everything look even worse, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah, right. Because you're trying to cover up for the Pope, right? I mean, it is truly bizarre, and truly
in such a
strange
way
just
that
in one language.
Everyone within 24 hours, everyone is going to know it's a false translation.
Right.
And you're going to have to correct it anyway. And the translator's job, it doesn't matter whom he translates. The translator's job is to make sure he translates what was said, and not what should have been said, or what the translator wishes had been said. Right. So
absolutely.
The translator is not responsible for what was said. His job is just to communicate it accurately in the language he's translating into. So,
absolutely. No, and first of all, hi to Matt, hi to Mary Beth. It's good to see you guys on here. Good to see everyone in the comment section. And I think, Mario, you sent me before the show, and I think this was a great idea to start with an encyclical to kind of tell what a true pope has to say on this matter. And now I'm pulling this. Oh, actually, wait, I got to share this.
Absolutely.
Sorry, guys.
Yes. Pope Pius IX.
Let me share this on my screen.
That's what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So this is Pope Pius IX, Qui Pluribus.
November 9th, 1846, I believe. It's at the very top.
Let's see. Well, yep, 1846. Mario with the memory. Who would have thought?
So that was, well, I mean, I just saw it in the show prep here.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, so that was his first year of being Pope, of this very, very long pontificate.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, and he comes out, and this is the language that I think Catholics would have become used to and expected in terms of, I guess, false ecumenism. So I guess I'll read it. We're looking here. Anyone looking on the screen, number 15 here.
15,
So this is quoting again from Pope Pius IX. Also perverse is the shocking theory that it makes no difference to which religion one belongs, a theory which is greatly at variance even with reason. By means of this theory, those crafty men remove all distinction between virtue and vice, truth and error, honorable and vile action. They pretend that men can gain eternal salvation by the practice of any religion, as if there could ever be any sharing between justice and iniquity, any collaboration between light and darkness, or any agreement between Christ and Belial.
Yep. Bam. Right? Bam.
Wow. Yeah. Not messing around. Yeah, that's
no.
Wow.
It lays it all out right there. And perhaps the most important part of what you just read is where the Pope says that it is a doctrine at variance even with reason. In other words, you don't need to be a Catholic. You don't even need to have the Catholic faith in order to understand that idea that all religions equally lead to salvation is false. That's very significant, although, of course, that is very, very, very clear in divine revelation, right? And I mean, we can look at that. I figure at first we should probably just play Bergoglio's the actual snippet from that meeting. I think it was what day was it? September 13th, this past Friday, in Singapore, which is a city-state, a teeny tiny nation. I believe it is on part of mainland China. I mean, not part of China, but it's its own nation, but on that piece of land. And so there was an interreligious meeting scheduled. That was, in fact, the last item on Bergoglio's agenda for his trip before the farewell ceremony at the airport in Singapore.
So wait, real quick. Sorry, is it interreligious meeting, or it was something for young adults or children or something, right?
Yeah,
Or
in
no?
fact, let me go back to the actual official schedule here. If I can.
Everyone should also check out, obviously, novusordowatch.org. Mario's got
That's right.
an article up. Probably what did you get that up, Mario? A couple of 20 minutes after it happened. but no, go check that out. Obviously, novusordowatch.org.
Oh no,
If you want to follow
it
that as well.
was no, it was Friday afternoon. I think it was like late afternoon or something. Yeah, but I mean that same day. But it took a while to put together and also look at first reactions and so on. Okay, so let me just see where did my link go? Here it is. So September 13th, Friday. Now Singapore is the time zone there is +8 from Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so it was, let's see, this was at 10 p.m., excuse me, at 10 a.m. in Singapore local time on the 13th of September. So this would have been 10 p.m., 2200 hours here in the United States Eastern Time on September 12th.
Right.
And it was advertised as an interreligious meeting with young people. And it was held at the so-called Catholic Junior College in Singapore. And I think we should just show the video and then move to specifically to that controversial, to those controversial remarks. Do you have the video ready? Wonderful.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So you can see this is the auditorium.
Some empty seats. That's kind of interesting, actually. Wow, you think
I know of another empty seat somewhere.
Yeah, well, if the Pope was coming, yeah, right, exactly. All right, then let's go ahead and play it. This is, I think it's about 3 minutes, I believe, that we are going to.
Okay, yeah, and so we want to show this at length because we want to show the context. And at first, what happens is so that Francis speaks a sentence or two in Italian, and then he pauses and lets the translator catch up. So we want to make sure we show this because this is what everybody there who didn't speak Italian heard, in addition to the actual Italian words that Francis spoke. Maybe if you can maximize the window there.
Una delle cose che più mi ha colpito di voi giovani, di questi qui, no? È la capacità del dialogo interreligioso.
One of the things that struck me about all of you here is your ability to engage in interreligious dialogue.
E questo è molto importante.
And this is very important.
Perché se voi incominciate a litigare, la mia religione è più importante della tua, la mia è la vera, la tua non è vera, dove ci porta questo?
Because if we start to fight amongst ourselves and saying, my religion is more important than yours, my religion is true, yours is not, where will that lead us?
Dove?
Where will it lead us?
Qualcuno risponda, dove?
Someone respond, where would it lead us? La distruzione.
È cosa così. E ci vuole litigare.
Yes, it's okay to discuss and to...
Tutte le religioni sono un cammino per arrivare a Dio.
Because every religion is a way to arrive at God.
Sono, dirò una comparazione, sono come diverse lingue, diversi idiomi per arrivare lì.
Sort of a comparison, an example would be they're sort of like different languages in order to arrive at God.
Ma Dio è Dio per tutti.
But God is God for all.
E come Dio è Dio per tutti, noi siamo tutti figli di Dio.
And if God is God for all, then we're all sons and daughters of God.
Ma il mio Dio è più importante del tuo.
But my God is more important than your God.
È vero quello?
Is that true?
C'è un solo Dio lì. E noi sono idiomi, cammino, lingue per arrivare a Dio.
There's only one God, and each of us is a language, so to speak, in order to arrive at God.
Qualcuno è Sikh, qualcuno musulmano, qualcuno
Sikh, Muslim,
Hindi, qualcuno cristiano.
Hindu.
Sono
Christian.
diversi cammini.
They're different paths.
Understood?
Okay, I think that was it, right?
Ma per il dialogo interreligioso fra i giovani ci vuole coraggio.
In order to have interreligious dialogue among young people, it takes courage.
Yeah, you
Perché
can
l'età giovanile
stop it
è
there,
l'età del
That's far enough. Yep.
right? Because I think that's all it was. Well, yeah, that's the controversial part. Was it? Are we at about 45 minutes and 30 seconds into the video?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, so what you just heard there from Francis was nothing short of apostasy.
Right.
Okay. And let me maybe we'll have to quote again from the text, and maybe you can put up the article on Novus Ordo Watch where I've got the quotes, and I
Yes,
can send you
sir.
the link real quick. And this is actually right now, it's the latest post on the blog, novusordowatch.org/.
I think I've got it already, Mario. That's that Francis tells interreligious youths all religions
Yes,
lead to God,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Yep. I got it up on the
Right.
screen.
And so if you scroll down, you will see the quote, first the Italian, which is the official Vatican transcript, right? And then this is an English translation. This is not what was published on the Vatican website because that was incorrect. So this is a reliable English translation made with deepl.com. So maybe you could zoom in on that a little bit, or the underlying parts that are the most important, right?
Right.
So everybody saw the context in which Francis was speaking, right? Interreligious meeting. You've got young people there who, of course, are very impressionable, and who don't have a lot of life experience. They only know what they've been taught in school. So here he's commending them for their capacity for interreligious or interfaith dialogue, and then he's basically telling them, don't argue over which religion is true. Okay, right? Because where does this lead? And somebody says destruction. Well, no. In general, a lucid exchange of ideas, a rational exchange of ideas, usually leads to, at least if the premises are true and everything, it leads to knowledge, right? That's usually why people discuss things. And when a Catholic discusses with a non-Catholic, and the Catholic knows his stuff and refutes the errors of the non-Catholic, what this results in is that the non-Catholic begins to understand how rational the Catholic faith is, how reasonable it is to be a Catholic, and how important and necessary it is to be a Catholic. So the result is actually that the non-Catholic will begin to understand the truth of the Catholic religion. That's what's supposed to happen. Now, for Francis, these discussions are futile because, well, for him, no religion really is true anyway. Because the only way you can say that all religions are the same, they're all paths to God, is if none of them are true. Okay,
Right.
Because all religions can only be equal if they're all equally false, right? Since they make contradictory claims, they make claims that are mutually exclusive, right? So if for example, the Muslim says God is one, but he is not three persons, okay? The Catholic faith says God is one and he is three persons. Well, those are contradictory statements. If the one is true, the other is false, and vice versa, right? So,
and what I've never understood, I mean, I've never considered Bergoglio to be Catholic. I mean, certainly not the Pope. But what I don't understand is like, okay, he is, if he's not that, then he's the head of something, some organization, whatever you want to call it. And shouldn't he be at least trying to market for his organization. I mean, I don't like, even just again, like I think Pius IX said too, logically, just how does that make, it doesn't make sense. There's no reason behind it. It's like, okay, well, what's the point? Why are you Catholic? I mean, why are you the Pope? Why do you do what you do if everything's equal? Who cares?
With reason.
Yeah.
None of it is important. None of it is important. None of it makes any sense. Certainly, no martyr would ever give up his life for something that's essentially just a useless fight anyway. I mean, what an insult to the martyrs. For example, I mean, any martyr really, right? But think of, for example, if the North American martyrs, Saint Isaac Jogues, Saint John of Brebeuf, and their companions, what tortures they underwent, because not all religions arrive at God. Okay, because only one religion is true and all the others are false. Because only one religion can give salvation and the others only bring damnation. That's why they did what they did, out of love for Christ. But what Francis said here is totally jives with what he said, what he signed in Abu Dhabi, right? That's maybe we'll get to that later, I suppose, maybe not just yet, but that's basically where he said that God wills false religions and that whole controversy. And you can see, well, wait a minute, if that's true, if God actively, positively desires there to be a plethora of religions, well, then all religions are false. Then it's all nonsense. Then there is no truth. Then Christ wasn't God. Then there is no Christianity. There is no Catholicism. There's no papacy. There's nothing. And that's what that leads to. But then that is exactly the sort of doctrine that I think the Antichrist, whenever he comes, will be preaching, if not explicitly, at least implicitly. And so what we've seen from Francis is sort of, he's been preparing the way to that. Sometimes he'll go like 3 steps ahead and then move 2 steps back. Well, then, that still nets 1 step ahead, right? And so that is the problem. And then you have his apologists, and they'll point to the 2 steps that he went back and leave out of account or try to minimize or somehow downplay the 3 steps ahead. And you can't do that. So when Novus Ordo apologists now point to, but Francis has said that Jesus Christ is the only Savior and the only way to salvation. Oh, sure, he said it, but he said way more against that. And an important thing to understand is that when Francis does say something along those lines, it is typically always when he's speaking to those people who already believe it. Okay? In other words, he's basically just telling people what they expect to hear, what they've already heard before, what they already know. Right? And so if he's speaking, for example, to a bunch of charismatics who typically tend to be conservative, to my knowledge, right? Say mixed charismatics, right? Novus Ordo and Protestant, evangelical and whatnot. If you tell those charismatics that Christ is the only way, they're not going to have a problem with that, right? They already believe that.
You're absolutely right, Mara. Real quick, hold that thought. I'm going to bring in SD Wright of WM Review. You're absolutely right. It's great to have you here, Sean of WM Review. Sean's not coming on camera, but it's great to have you here. Do you hear us? Oh, is he gone? Oh, he's gone. Come back. Come back. Come back. He was here and then he was gone. We're also open again. Everyone, please in the chat, please say a prayer for Father Ojeka's network. He is, I think, the travels they do are incredible. And he's probably in the middle of Nigeria somewhere. So let's try to hopefully he is able to join us as well. Okay, now do you hear us?
I do. Do you hear me?
I hear you. How you doing? It's been a busy day,
great.
Huh? It's good to have you on.
It has been a pretty busy day.
Welcome, Sean.
Weekend, I suppose.
Thanks so much.
And so Sean, we already played the video. We've been talking about I guess basically what's happened, how ridiculous it is, and I guess you also came out recently, I think today or yesterday, with a podcast. I got to shout that out, everyone. Please go check it out, wmreview.org. I'll share that in the chat. Really good stuff. If everyone doesn't already know, WM Review, definitely one of the top sites out there for Catholic material. What's your take? I guess we've talked now for 25 minutes. What do you have to say, Sean?
Yeah, I've been following what you guys have been saying whilst I've been getting ready to get on here. There's just so much you can say, right? It's just unlimited, really. The thing that really has stuck out for me has been that this is, some people will be saying, oh, it's what Vatican II said. Oh, it's been being said for the last 60 years or whatever. But I think this is different in the sense that it's just totally brazen. For the last however many years, people have been saying, oh, that's not really what Vatican II meant. It didn't, when it said means of salvation, blah, 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 it didn't really mean all religions are a path to God. But now we've got the man saying it. It's there. He's literally saying it. And so they're already scrambling and saying, oh, well, all religions are a path to God. Doesn't really mean all religions are a path to God. It means something else. And then, a few years' time, they're going to just say, well, yeah, all religions are a path to God. And it's just the slumping towards apostasy.
And it's something that I thought when I first saw it. I mean, I just connected back to even Vatican II. Obviously Vatican II it was much more ambiguous. As you said, it's so in your face now. It's kind of shocking, but it's been leading to this for what are we now? 60 years, right? At least that's what it seems like. I mean, these are in the documents ambiguously, but it's leading there. I mean, you look at Assisi with JP2. You look at Abu Dhabi. Mario mentioned that earlier. I mean, this is shocking how bold it is, but it's also not. It's not really new, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that necessarily I'd agree that it was ambiguous before, but I think it had some level of plausible deniability. But now we're just left with implausible deniability, and it's just amusing to see.
No, absolutely, Mario. We interrupted your thought. Why don't you want to continue, and we'll let John. No problem.
No, that's okay. Well, I wanted to see if maybe we could look some more at that quote. So what we played of Francis. So he was, discouraging them from basically fighting about whose religion is true, even though he did say in that same clip, discuss, yes. Well, okay. Well, which is it? What does that mean now? Okay, I guess they can discuss, but ultimately none of it is really ultimately all that important because, and there he said in the quote, all religions are a path to God. Like, yeah, I guess you can discuss them, but just don't think that one is better than another. Or, you might think yours is better than another. And maybe Francis would even give them the right to think that, but always just as a personal preference, right? And instead, what he's preaching is, you can see it right there. God is God for everyone. And because God is God for everyone, we are all God's children. What do we mean here by God's children? It is true, that obviously God created humanity. And, in a sense, we are all, obviously, we're all God's creatures. And we all share the same parents, right? So you can look at it in sort of a natural way, but that's going to do nothing for your salvation, right? And that's why we read in the New Testament that supernaturally speaking, we were children of wrath before the redemption, right? And that's why we have to be baptized to become children of God. It's the sanctifying grace in the soul that makes a Catholic a child of God. And a Catholic in mortal sin who has no grace in his soul is not a child of God. That is the very basic, very clear teaching of the Catholic Church until the death of Pope Pius XII. And so this talk of, well, we're all God's children, in one sense, okay, you could say that, but that sense is irrelevant to salvation. In other words, we may all be God's children, but most or many of God's children will then go to hell. Right? As far as the supernatural aspect goes, and Kevin, I'm not sure what happened here. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mario. It's
different.
Camera again. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah. No. As far as salvation is concerned, supernaturally, we're children of wrath until we are baptized until we have sanctifying grace in the soul, and then we need to make an effort to keep, with God's help, of course, with God's grace, to keep that sanctifying grace in the soul in order to continue to be children of God. And as I was preparing for this program, I was I thought of the parable of the 10 virgins, where you have 5 faithful ones and 5 that are not faithful, or that didn't bring enough oil in their lamps. And guess what? The 5 that didn't bring enough oil, they were delayed, and they were excluded from the marriage feast, right? And so the teaching wasn't, oh well, they're all children of God, or well, they're they followed the right path. Okay, you know what, they did, but they got there too late. This is like all you need to do to understand how wrong Bergoglio is read the New Testament. Bergoglio contradicts the New Testament all over the place.
Absolutely, Mario. I was I'm on a every now and then I just cycle through your old podcasts when I go for runs and things like that, and
Okay.
I was listening to one from I think 2017 or something like that, and I came across a passage in there from 2 John where St. John says, "Whosoever revolteth and continueth not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. He that continueth in the doctrine, the same hath both the Father and the Son." There's all this, people can kind of wrangle when they say, "Oh, hey, no man comes to the Father but through me." But maybe they don't know they're going to the Father through Christ. Well, there's no getting around that. The doctrine of Christ is completely clear. Without faith, you cannot please God.
Right. So Bergoglio couldn't be more wrong. It's totally against what he said is totally against revelation, but then even totally against reason. Because if all religions are a path to God, somebody should have said, "Excuse me, if all religions are a path to God, what are you all about? Like, what do we need you for?"
Right, but that was my point about the marketing, right? It's like, what are you doing? It seems like there must be some agenda, and it's some, I don't know if it's a new world religion agenda. That's kind of my thought, but he's certainly not doing a good job as the head marketer of the Novus Ordo faith.
No, but I also don't think he really means to be. Like I don't think you can really understand what is going on without positing that this is diabolical, right? And that the true goal is to lead souls to hell and to destroy Catholicism in every way possible in souls, right? That's what they're aiming for.
No, absolutely. No, I think you're definitely right. But that's kind of the scary part of it, right? That it isn't just a truly, idiotic person who's just saying nonsense. It is someone who's clearly, evil. But again, it's got to go back to Vatican II, right? And I think that was kind of the point. Again, we want to have Father Jacob. What is going on with my camera? I'm gonna sue Sony. I'm bringing them to court. I don't understand what's going on.
If you carry on like that.
Oh my goodness! I'm sorry, guys.
It's a Sony camera. Okay, good. Now we know.
Man. It's only when I'm on with Mario. I don't understand, Mario. There is something that you do to my camera.
Okay, I use Logitech. Okay, and it's just a simple webcam. I don't know what you're
I don't understand, but I never have this problem except for on shows with Mario. Okay, not never.
I suppose you've already talked about Mortalium Animos, have you?
No.
I mean, that is just beautiful at the end of that passage there, when he describes everything that's basically just been affirmed in that video you've already seen. And then he says at the end of that particular section, "One who supports those who holds these theories and attempt to realize them is altogether abandoning the divinely revealed religion." So not even just those who do them, those who propose them, even those who support them are abandoning the divinely revealed religion. I mean, the only way any of this could make any sense is if you think that that basically there is no divinely revealed religion. There's just various forms of natural religion which are reaching up towards God and trying to reach them. And if there was no divinely revealed religion, maybe something like that might be the case that God might have set up for his order of providence, but it isn't. And to even posit, I always feel ill even just sort of saying that, because it's just so false, right? There is a divinely revealed religion, and this is a denial of it.
Right. And also, what was I going to say? The various religions contradict one another. So they are making truth claims, at least most of them, right? I mean, Islam claims to be the true religion. Mormonism claims to be the true religion. I have no idea anymore what Anglicanism claims, but you get the point.
Let's not talk about them.
Right? So they can't all be from God. So it would only mean that no religion is from God. It's all a bunch of hooey,
Absolutely.
right? And we're all going to heaven at the end of the day, and that's more or less what Francis wants you to believe. I'm going to phrase it that way. I don't think you can really understand the man or I don't think you can make sense of everything he said and done without positing that he's a deceiver. Okay, that is the only way I think that you can rationally explain everything that we've seen from him, at least since 2013, when he first began to claim to be the Pope of the Catholic Church. And notice too, there was nobody, I guess, batted an eye when he said that, right?
Yeah, that was really surprising. And the translators just sort of grinning away. I was just thinking, imagine being that guy to have to translate that. And
yes. And then, of course, it reminds me of when Francis was in Morocco. I think it was 2019. And there was also an interreligious meeting with young people. And so he's talking to them about differences that we all have, cultural differences, language differences, and so on. And then he says, and also religious differences. And then he says, our differences are necessary. And again, nobody bats an eye. Like, well, wait a minute. There are some differences that may be necessary by positive divine decree. Like, there's male and female. Those differences are necessary because that's how God made it. But religious differences aren't necessary. They're an unfortunate product of original sin, of course, and diabolical intervention. It's certainly not necessary that there be more than one religion. But when you look at all his interreligious statements together, you can pretty much figure out that he doesn't believe there is. Well, first of all, I don't think he believes in eternal salvation as a concept. I think it's something he has to mention occasionally, just to because he's playing Pope. But I don't think there's an actual, that he really believes that there is an afterlife and our vocation is to be with God for all eternity, and those who do not die in the state of grace are going to hell. I don't think he believes that for a minute. And instead, when you look at his interreligious stuff, I'm not talking about the stuff that he says to people who are Catholic or who mean to be Catholic, but rather the interreligious stuff. It's always a message of, let's not sweat it. The important thing is we work together to save the planet and the climate and and whatever, reduce unemployment. And the religious stuff, well, that's a matter for opinion, for discussion. We all have our traditions, and we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? And I mean, that attitude has been around for a long time, but it was only recently in Abu Dhabi, I think it was the first manifestation where he came right out and said that God wills it that way, that we have different religions.
I just can't really believe it's happening because my formative years were kind of consisted of hearing people say, "Oh, it doesn't really mean that. It doesn't really mean they're all a path to God." And now, as you say, since Abu Dhabi, and now it's just out there, isn't it? There's no more. I mean, you said on Twitter, Mario, that you had sat through some of the defenses of this, or the explanations, shall we say. What do you think was there anything that might plausibly be called the least bad defense of it, or was it universally trash?
Comments?
Yes.
From what I've seen, and I haven't made like an extensive effort or anything. It's just stuff I've come across. No, I would say so. Archbishop Chaput, or however you pronounce his name, something just came out today where he said, "Well, I hope he didn't mean what he said." You know, like, okay, can we at least agree that what he said was, assuming he meant it, and that's typically how it works, right? You typically mean what you say. Then yeah, okay. So I guess we're in agreement that that's unacceptable. Although I haven't read the whole article, so I don't know if Chaput is even saying, even agreeing on that. But he did say, let's hope he didn't mean it. So that was one defense I saw. Then I suffered through Michael Lofton's entire show on that, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure what his defense was. I kept hearing that we were supposed to hit the like and subscribe button. He was very clear on that.
Do it now before it's too late.
Do it now. And by the way, if you haven't yet, yeah. But it was something about, well, you know, yeah, if this translation is accurate, then yeah, that's pretty bad. And you know, he seemed to take it somewhat with humor, you know, like, oh yeah, man, every time Francis, you know, speaks off the cuff and deviates from a script, that's when things get bad. Like, well, yeah, that's because he's not a Catholic, and that's when he can tell you what he actually thinks without having to, you know, refer to what somebody else wrote down for him to say.
So why is it though? I guess I don't completely understand why this is so much of a bigger reaction than Abu Dhabi, because Abu Dhabi seemed like that was, I guess that you had a big reaction. I mean, obviously Mario, you're commenting on it and stuff, but now it seems like you have a lot of your recognize and resist, whatever you want to call them, SSPXers, you know, this type of crowd who are really truly like, whoa, okay, wait a second, is he actually maybe not the Pope? And I guess I just don't obviously this is more in the open, but why now, do you think? I mean, is it just, it's just one step too far, I suppose?
In my opinion, one reason is that it's 5 more years have passed, 5.5 more since Abu Dhabi, and you know there's been Traditionis Custodes, which of course for the semi-trats is a big deal. So there's a lot less willingness to look kindly upon Francis, and you know, give him the supposed benefit of the doubt. And we're so sick and tired of hearing that. There is, first of all, there is no doubt, and secondly, he deserves no benefit. But Sean, what do you think?
I think I agree with everything you said there. Another part of it, I think, is that the language is just simpler. I mean, to say God wills a diversity of religions, there's multiple words there with more than one syllable, right? Whereas all religions are a path to God. And not only that, it is the very thing, as I kind of have kept laboring, it's the very thing that these people have been denying is what's being said for so long. And so now it's just like being slapped in the face with a wet fish, basically. It's there. You know, that's what it meant all along. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
it's sad, really.
I immediately thought of this as like, oh, here's the confirmation of the Abu Dhabi heresy. In other words, that he meant exactly what he said there in that way. And of course, you know, with Abu Dhabi, I mean, you had so many people trying to bend over backwards to twist that into something orthodox. And like, guys, just stop it. You cannot interpret that in an orthodox way. And I think it's been 5 years. Let's maybe bring this up and quote it. Kevin, are you still around?
I'm here, guys. I'm desperately trying to fix this camera, and I it's bizarre. Anyway,
okay.
yeah, I'm working on it. I hope it comes back, but I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see, Kevin. Maybe. Well, wait a minute. No, you can't put anything. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can. I can do anything. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay,
send it to me and I'll share it.
I'm sending you a link right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is to the Novus Ordo Watch post dated February 11th, 2019. It's called Ark of Apostasy: Why Francis's Interreligious Fraternity Document Does Not Admit of an Orthodox Interpretation. And I just want to quote from here that the actual quote from the document, which you can find on the Vatican website. It's called A Document on Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together. It was signed on February 4th, 2019. And here is the controversial paragraph, or the controversial passage. Quote, freedom is a right of every person. Each individual enjoys, the freedom of belief, thought, expression, and action. The pluralism and the diversity of religions, color, sex, race, and language are willed by God in his wisdom through which he created human beings. This divine wisdom is the source from which the right to freedom of belief and the freedom to be different derives, unquote. That is apostasy. That is blasphemy, okay? And notice that he lumps together, he calls it the pluralism and the diversity of, and then he starts enumerating religions, color, sex, race, and language. So some, Novus Ordo's, Francis's apologists, they're trying to twist this into something orthodox, immediately jump out. Well, he's saying that God wills the diversity of religions just in a passive way, in the sense that he doesn't interfere, right? He tolerates religions. Well, if you want to say that, then you also have to say that he meant that the diversity and pluralism of color, sex, race, and language are also only passively willed by God, which of course is plainly false and absurd, right? So, in other words, you can't have it both ways. Everything that he enumerated, religions, color, sex, race, and language, as being willed by God, they're all either passively willed or they're all actively willed. But you can't say, well, religions is willed passively and the rest is willed actively. That is just impossible grammatically, okay? Sean, do you have anything to add to that, or Kevin?
No, it was pretty comprehensive, really.
Okay, so so in other words, there was no way you were going to get Bergoglio off the hook by saying religions are willed passively, but color, sex, race, language, that's all willed actively. No, you cannot do that. It's all part of the same thought. And let me see. So from right then and there, it was clear this is apostasy. Now, some people say, oh, you didn't really read the document or whatever. First of all, it doesn't matter. It's his responsibility to know what he's signing. Secondly, of course he read the document. Third, his whole team, his Vatican team, worked on that, collaborated with the Muslims in Abu Dhabi on coming up with that statement, which means that every single iota of that document has been reviewed and thought about and debated and agreed upon by both sides. So in other words, this is not something that is that they come up with on the spur of the moment. This is.
Can you remind us? Was Bishop Schneider's explanation of it? Is that just from him? There's been no kind of official
actually
approval of that explanation.
Yeah, and of course, look, if it were, which is really absurd, but if it were the case, if it were possible that somebody made a mistake here, the natural reaction would be to say, oh my goodness, there's an ambiguity here that could actually give this an apostate meaning. We've got to immediately rush to correct this and tell everyone that's not what it means, right? That would be the natural reaction of a Catholic. Like, oh, I made a mistake here. I've got to fix this. This is heresy. This is apostasy. This is denying Christ, right? But
that's exactly what Pius VI says, isn't it? In Doctrinum Fidei, he says, if anyone's sound in doctrine, as they want to appear to be, then when somebody says, you've said something that looks pretty fishy over here, and we're going to explain why it's fishy, you'll be happy. You'll be happy that the possible error in what you said stands condemned.
Oh, yes. Right. And that's one way that they're not sincere, these people, like Bergoglio, especially not Bergoglio. They make no effort to correct these things or to apologize. On the other hand, if he says something that could appear to be against sodomites or something, there is a rush to clarify and correct it. And so, let me see, what was I going to bring up? Oh yeah, so you brought up Bishop Schneider, Sean. And so what happened is that I think it was in March of 2019, so shortly after the whole Abu Dhabi thing, the bishops of Kazakhstan were due for their 5-year visit with Francis. All bishops in the world have to, or all dioceses have to send the bishop or representative or whatever to the Vatican once every 5 years and basically brief. The idea is to brief the Pope on the state of the diocese and stuff. This is called the ad limina visit. And so it was their turn. So the auxiliary of Maria Santissima in Astana of that diocese, Athanasius Schneider, was part of the delegation. And so, he used the opportunity to ask Francis, or to tell Francis about this issue there in the text, and how it gives the impression that God has positively willed other religions. And I'm going from memory now. I have, in fact, maybe you want to, Kevin, I'm going to send you the link in case you're
sure. I'm here.
Interested. We can put this all in the show notes.
Yeah.
And so Francis, in response, of course, told Bishop Schneider that he could, that this could be interpreted in that way, and that would mean that God wills religions positively, and of course that's not what he means, And then he basically told Schneider that he can tell everyone that the correct meaning is that God wills these false religions only permissively, he only tolerates these false religions. But Francis would not issue a retraction or like this was bad. He just told Bishop Schneider, okay, yeah, you can tell everybody that, and now get out of my face, and so that makes some people say, oh look, he clarified, he only meant, well, no, he's simply, of course he's not going. What is he going to tell Athanasius Schneider? Was he going to, no, of course it's apostasy. Obviously, I'm trying to mislead everyone here. Of course he's not going to say that. And then after that, when was that? So this then in April, interestingly enough, he gave in one of his audiences, Wednesday audiences, he started talking about why does God permit so many religions? And in that audience, he specifically says that, God is, this is what, let me quote. Why does God permit so many religions? God willed to permit this. The theologians of scholasticism refer to God's permissive will, voluntas. He willed to permit this reality. There are so many religions. Some are born of the culture, but always looking to heaven, looking at God. So all of a sudden, it's funny how all of a sudden he brings up scholasticism, which he detests. But, for this audience, all of a sudden, the theologians of scholasticism were good enough. The theologians of scholasticism referred to God's permissive will. Okay, so here he gave this one audience. I don't believe he brought up Abu Dhabi at all, but it was interesting that he said that in this audience and then still did nothing to correct the Abu Dhabi statement. And so when you then compare this to what he said later the same year in Morocco, that religious differences are necessary, once again, you simply have a deceiver here. He wants to inculcate in everybody who's not Catholic that all religions are ultimately the same, that it doesn't matter what religion you are, and that God even wills a diversity of religions. But then when he is pressed on the matter, or when he needs to do damage control, then he'll suddenly sing a different tune. But of course, he will then once again contradict that at the next opportunity.
So why does he do that? I mean, I've heard someone compare it. I think it was the book The Dictator Pope, which I read years ago. And I think he was saying it's kind of Peronism. It's kind of this idea of, yeah, I'm just going to tell everyone whatever it is that they want to hear, just to kind of appease them and just keep pushing forward the actual agenda kind of in the background. And then when people push you on it, you just don't say anything at all. And that clearly seems to be his entire formula, I suppose. And I guess the question now is, right, he's obviously going to be pushed on this. They're going to ask him, okay, what do you think? Someone's going to ask him, and he's just going to ignore it. It's what he's done it for years now. It's going to be the same thing. And so I guess that's my question is, I mean, it seems like this has gotten a bigger splash than all of the other things before. So I guess my question is it going to change anything? Are you actually going to have some of your semi-trads, your SSPXers, et cetera, coming out and saying, no, okay, yeah, this is too far, because it's eventually it's got to happen, right? I mean, at least that's what we hope and pray for. Also, everyone, please like and subscribe so we get more people watching this important information. I'm not going to push it too much like Mr. Lofton over there, but it's still good if you do it. But I guess, I mean, Sean, I guess I'll ask you, what do you see anything actually coming from this, or is it going to be just like everything else, and it's just going to eventually go back off into the back of everyone's minds?
Well, everything else has always led to a few people at each stage, more or less people at each stage do form that conclusion, don't they? And I see it all the time. Will there be a en masse? I don't. I doubt it, especially with the Trump thing yesterday or whenever it was, the day before. It was yesterday. That immediately everyone's attention is now elsewhere because of that. Whereas this is much bigger, much more important news, really. So I don't know. I mean, I think we just have to treat these things as opportunities to, like Mario said, it's 5 years on from Abu Dhabi. Each year, each week that these things happen, people get less and less settled in previous certainties about how to explain these things, and more open to alternative explanations, and come to see the need for these alternative explanations. Well, alternative explanation singular. What about you, Mario? What do you think?
Yes, although, I mean, you're always going to have those recognize and resist people who've long made up their minds that it doesn't matter what Francis does or says. They'll continue to accept him as Pope. And of course, it's very easy for them to do that because they refuse him submission. Well, in other words, for them, the word Pope really it's just a label. It doesn't have any reality attached to it, but for some reason, they insist on giving him that label. And what they're doing effectively with that is that they're destroying the Catholic notion of the papacy. To call that man the Pope, and then, I mean, it totally demolishes the papacy. Nobody needs a papacy if what Bergoglio is doing is exercising the papacy. I mean, that man is such a danger to everybody's salvation. I always like to say that if you want to know whether Bergoglio is the Pope or not, simply read on what the Catholic Church believes about the papacy. What is the papacy? From 1958 and before, read the Catholic literature on the papacy. There's no way you can fit Bergoglio into that.
Or like the encyclical we read at the beginning, right? I mean, again, it starts with also perverse is the shocking theory, and the shocking theory is exactly what Bergoglio just did. So it's like, I mean, it comes exactly, almost line for line, kind of what Bergoglio is saying, that Pius IX condemned, in the 1840s. And I guess that's it. But it's interesting again that I think Sean said it really well, that this is an opportunity to bring some clarification. And someone mentioned in the comments that Louis Verrecchio is going to be speaking at the Fatima conference. I think that's a great point. And I'm a big fan of Louis. I would love to have him on the podcast again too. And I hope to actually live stream his talk. We'll have to see if that works out from the Fatima conference. But he's great, because I've talked to him a little bit, and at least what I understand of his story, he was a Vatican II expert. Like, he was going around as an expert promoting Vatican II. And he said eventually, he's like, I got so deep into it that I saw, okay, this is bad. This is not Catholic. And I think that's pretty interesting.
Yes. And and where Vatican II is ambiguous, all you need to look at is the post-conciliar magisterium. In what way did they interpret the ambiguous statement? That's all you need to know. That is your, if you think that that's the Catholic Church and the Catholic magisterium, that's what you have to go by. It doesn't matter if you figured out some kind of an argument how you can read that particular passage of Vatican II in an Orthodox sense. If that's not the sense given to it by the post-conciliar magisterium, then it doesn't matter.
Well, it blows my mind too that with what Bergoglio has also said about proselytism, right? He said never. What did he say? I don't remember the exact quote, but something like Catholics should never proselytize, and it just blew my mind because it's like, okay, well, just imagine. I mean, someone who's trying to be Catholic, they think that he is in their minds the Pope, and the Pope says that, and you're going out and you meet a Buddhist friend or whatever, Muslim, and you're just starting to talk about religion, and you're sitting there thinking like, well, shoot. I mean, I guess I can't, say anything good about the Catholic faith or try to convince them because the Pope says I should. And it's so insane. I can't even fathom, and it's so sad for the people who try to be Catholic, want to be Catholic, and there's how could you possibly be Catholic in this farce?
Yeah, it's actually, that's kind of what Patrick Coffin, who used to be the host of Catholic Answers Live with Catholic Answers, excuse me. That's what Patrick Coffin said, contributed a lot to his decision to exit, because when you're trying to sell a product, so to speak, by analogy, and then the boss comes and constantly poo-poos the product. Well, he's destroying everything, right? So
that's it. I mean, the Francis defense machine, we often get accused of being Gnostics, right? You say that, oh yeah, the invisible church, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's a bit pathetic to say, no, you're the real Gnostics. But these guys are the ones who are saying, okay, in spite of everything you can see, there's actually this secret knowledge that everything's fine. Or if not everything's fine, everything kind of is orthodox and works out in the end. And you just think, well, that's great for you that you've managed to, do exactly what Francis tells you not to do, actually, and make your little bubble of security where you think, okay, everything's okay, but you're ignoring the fact that there's countless people who are not Catholic who are hearing this and are taking the obvious inference from it and are not going to become Catholic because of it. And then there's all the people that you were both mentioning as well who are in that thing and think that this is the teaching of the Pope and think that they have to obey it and so on. And it's just a mess. And it's just grinds the gears to think that you guys have got your solution that you think is okay, and you just don't care about these people who are going to be lost or are on the way to being lost anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it's what a mess. But I guess, I mean, we can all be thankful. As Mario said, his job is easier because he can report on things practically daily. And I think Bergoglio has been a great gift, right? I mean, I think he has, because he's made these things a lot clearer. And statements like this I think they're a godsend, right? I mean, I think we'd all agree that, I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, and I hope that it brings a lot of clarity to people. And I think eventually, right, the cognitive dissonance, it has to go. People of goodwill have to eventually say, okay, yeah, okay, fine, enough. And then you hope once they say, okay, Bergoglio is not the Pope, can't be the Pope, then hopefully they continue on down that path.
Yeah, well, I guess now, the irony in it all is, if what Bergoglio says is true, that all religions lead to God, you might as well be a sedevacantist then.
Right. That's rigid, man.
Bergoglio just gave the store away. So I would say, to all of you people who were so worried about adhering to Bergoglio just in case he is the Pope and not going the dangerous route of sedevacantism, he just gave you the green light. It doesn't matter. Just, whatever, Hindu, Buddhist, Zoroastrian, sedevacantist, just whatever.
It would have been great if he'd mentioned sedevacantism in that list, wouldn't it?
Yes, not in that one, right?
Someday.
Yeah, it's insane. But you know what? Maybe we could go back to Bergoglio's words in Singapore, because there's more to say about. First of all, there's more he said that was really problematic, right? We kind of left off with him saying all religions are a path to God, and then he continued, right? And he says they are, I make a comparison, like different languages, different idioms to get there. Now, notice, by the way, he's not just saying, oh, they're all whatever paths to try to reach God, as if like, well, okay, this is, they're all like putting us on a journey. No, he's actually saying you get there, you arrive, right? But God is God for everyone. And, I see, now we already covered that part, right? And because God is God for everyone, we are all God's children. But my God is more important than yours. Is this true? There is only one God, and our religious languages, paths to get to God. Some Sikh, some Muslim, some Hindu, some Christian, but they are different paths. Understood? So...
And I'm sorry, real quickly, I just have to comment. What about like Hindus have what, thousands of gods, hundreds of gods? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's not just heretical apostasy. It's stupid. It's absolute nonsense. I can't understand how anyone could, as you said, how is the guy who's translating this not like, should I really say that?
He didn't even look embarrassed.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why you had that one Vatican translator said, I can't put that, in English, right? But yeah, Hinduism, I mean, it is a disgusting religion.
Right.
What they worship, it's not funny, okay? In fact, if you want to, Kevin, you can scroll down on that page that you just quoted from on Novus Ordo Watch. If you scroll down, you will see the picture of one of the Hindu gods, Ganesha. And that's just one of them. I don't know how many idols they have.
Yikes.
But Hinduism is really, really bad.
Yeah, that's the same as a Catholic god. Yep, for sure. That's,
it's just yeah, and it gets very perverted. Like they worship genitalia, and I don't want to get into that any further. But
I mean, also Satanism is a religion too, right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Satanism is a religion too.
Thank you.
Is that a path to God?
There you go.
The Aztec religion.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about what Bergoglio says there with regard to, we all have different languages. He's what he's insinuating there, or maybe even saying outright, is that we're all saying the same thing. We're just using different languages to say it. And I think that's the error underlying this, right? It's all the same, and these are just different traditions, it's all ice cream, they're just different flavors.
Well, it wasn't with that English translation, was it? Because it was a completely different text compared to the French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese.
Oh yes, with the incorrect English translation, yes.
That's right, yeah.
Kind of softened that, and although I'm not sure now. Yeah, it was like, religions are seen as paths trying to reach God. No, that's not what he said. He said all religions are paths to God, or are a path to God. I mean, we have the actual Italian here. In any case, everybody can look at it for himself, if so desired. Languages that try to express ways to approach God. That was the incorrect translation. Right? No, he said languages. Let's see, languages to get there. Okay, well, I'm not sure now. Sean, do you have the? Do you have?
Yeah, I do have it to hand. Yeah, or sort of
here,
anyway.
Right? Like different languages.
They're like languages that try to express.
That's what the incorrect translation said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the incorrect. I haven't got the updated one.
The mop up, right? Someone trying to clean up after the Pope, guys. Cleaning up after the Pope.
That is that the first mistranslation shows that they knew it was a problem, and the second thing shows that they recognized that the first one was a mistranslation. So it's just, on all sides, it's own goals basically.
Yeah, this actually is a very much, I think, one of the fundamental errors of Vatican II, which was, and it was, this error was condemned in Humani Generis by Pope Pius XII. This idea that you can, that dogmatic definitions don't actually express the truth of the matter. They're just they're just one way to express something that can ultimately not be expressed. Let me see. So if Pius XII in Humani Generis, and this is paragraph 15, he refers to those who, quote, hold that the mysteries of faith are never expressed by truly adequate concepts, but only by approximate and ever-changeable notions, in which the truth is to some extent expressed, but is necessarily distorted. Wherefore, they do not consider it absurd, but altogether necessary, that theology should substitute new concepts in place of the old ones, in keeping with the various philosophies which in the course of time it uses as its instruments, so that it should give human expression to divine truths in various ways which are even somewhat opposed, but still equivalent, as they say. Unquote. That's Pius XII. He's condemning that idea. And that goes back to the Jesuit Henri Bouillard, who in 43 or thereabouts, or maybe it was 46, published an essay in which he first, expressed this idea that, well, there is the truth of the doctrine on the one hand, and then there's the way we talk about this truth or the way we express this truth on the other. And so he disconnected the two. And so Father Garrigou-Lagrange was right on his case about it, because he immediately recognized what a dangerous error that is. But that has been underlying so much of the new theology and just this, the false, all these errors of Vatican II and the post-conciliar church that we see nowadays, and that is now being applied to other religions altogether in a similar way. Because I think what Francis said there with regard to, they're all just different languages, is very much rooted in that same error, or at least is a variation of that error. That we all try to get to God. We use different ways of doing it, but ultimately it's all the same God. We're all His children, and we've got the Hindu tradition over there, we've got the Jewish tradition over there, and then there's also the Catholic tradition, and nobody really knows, right? That's what underlies this modernist agnosticism.
Well, and I mean, you look at Vatican II too, right? They had, many, Lutherans were part of it, and I think that there's plenty of things you can read about trying to soften the approach with the Jews, etc. It's all connected to way back when, I suppose, far before the Vatican Council as well. But I guess I always wonder too, what's the difference between Abu Dhabi or now compared to also to Assisi and JP2? Again, okay, maybe we don't have him quoted as saying this or this, but they're worshiping their false gods in a Catholic cathedral. And I'm just getting a message from Sean. So Sean's got to go. Sean, you have any last words before?
I'll just say about that actions speak louder than words, right? People have this obsession that heresy has to be a specific denial of in words and so on, and some people even extend that to saying it has to be ex cathedra, which is obviously ludicrous. But actions speak louder than words. Actions are equivalent to words, not always, sure, but sometimes. So I think I'm sure that you guys are going to tackle Assisi very adequately without me. So I'll just say thanks very much for having me, and see you on.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, everyone, please go check them out, wmreview.org. Very consistently good material, very, very good material. And also now a podcast, which I actually didn't, it's not super regular, right? Or you just sometimes.
No, it's not the most regular. No, we're getting there.
Not like Catholic podcasts with two or three a day, right? You're a little more sane.
Yeah, you're a bit more on top of that.
or just crazy. Yeah, no, that's it. No, but no, definitely everyone, please go check it out and support them as well. One of the very few bastions of good media trying to produce good Catholic media. So please support them in whatever way you can. Same of course with Mario at Novus Ordo Watch. There's not enough people trying to tell the truth out there, and especially trying to uncover the lies of Bergoglio, etc. So please support WMReview.org and Novus Ordo Watch as well. And again, before we go, I'm not saying we're going to end this, but I want to mention again with Father Ojeka's book. I'll attach a link again. It's really good. You can download it also as a PDF version, but it's available at Glorious Heritage Books.
Have you mentioned the name of the book yet?
That is my what is it again? My Treasured Mistake.
Right.
And it's about his again. Sorry, go ahead.
It's an interesting title. I'll check it out.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. God bless you.
Yep, John, take care.
God bless. Ta-da.
Bye.
And everyone, if you want to go listen to, you got to listen to a podcast just because he's got great content, and the British voice is it's just awesome. I just love it. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to embarrass him while he's here, but I kind of wish I just had this really nice, calm British voice. That'd be great.
Well, I know what you mean. Of course, though, he would surely object that, there is no such thing as a British accent. It's either English or Welsh or, Scottish.
Fair. That's fair. Sorry,
whatever else they have there.
Yeah. But it's a very educated accent. I think I really appreciate that. We Americans, we sound much more. I get made fun of all the time in Germany. You guys sound you sound like you got potatoes in your mouth or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, well, you're German. What are you talking about? But anyway, no, and everyone, please remember again, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Share this because we did this on a Monday afternoon in the US, so a lot of people can't tune in live, of course. So we do want to get this material out because again, I think it's important that plenty of people already know this stuff. I mean, many people watching this are watching because they like Mario and they want to hear what he has to say on it. That's great. We appreciate that. But we do actually want, especially people who are on the edge and they're kind of like, okay, this is crazy. I don't know what to think about it. And I think that's what we really want. That's what, again, WM Review, Novus Ordo Watch really helped to provide, a little bit of that bridge to, hey, you want to actually know what the church actually teaches? Here you go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Mario, do you want to keep going or?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Right,
there's still a few
Mario
things
and I can go
sure.
for 4 hours. We've done this. You guys got to be careful. Everyone settle in.
So when Francis just ended his big tour, right? His big what they call it, apostolic journey to to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Singapore, right? September 2nd to the 13th. And I actually read every single speech he gave in that trip. And
brave man.
In English, of course, right, when it was translated. And so I just want to point out that if you read everything that he said there are plenty of times where he speaks positively about mission or evangelization. And some people might go to that and say, well, he can't possibly mean that all religions are the same. But that would be a mistake. For one thing, he is always clear that when he's talking about mission, he doesn't mean proselytism. And in fact, that was one of the first things he did upon arriving in Indonesia. Is he told the secular authorities there that this is not about proselytism. Okay, by proselytism, it's very easy to prove. By proselytism, Bergoglio means convincing somebody that the Catholic religion is the only true religion and that you must join it if you wish to be saved. That is what Bergoglio detests, and his actions certainly show that. Any type of missionary activity, he likes to be, of course, ambiguous and, insinuate rather than say outright, but missionary, it's always about something about encounter and joy and experience and so on, right? And so it's not a matter of, okay, well, there can only be one true religion and this is the true religion, therefore you must join it. Now, of course, there are various ways of evangelizing, right? And oftentimes it may not be the best idea to approach that in a way of, unless, you become Catholic, you're going to hell. Some need to hear it put like that, but probably most need to have, most need a bit of a different approach. but still, ultimately, that is the truth that has to be communicated, but you can communicate it in a nice way. No, by proselytism, Bergoglio means converting people to Catholicism by means of rational arguments. He doesn't want that. He wants more like soup kitchens and whatever, and joy. And then the idea is that at some point, the atheist approaches you and says, "Oh my goodness, how can you be so joyful? Tell me more about this religion of yours." Yeah. What a silly way to make into mission, because okay, let's say an atheist sees you or sees somebody helping out at the soup kitchen, helping out the needy and being joyful and all that. And then, okay, so then the atheist approaches that person. What if the person is a Mormon? Then
right.
what? Does that make Mormonism the true religion? I mean, a lot of the stuff is just stupid.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to. So my point was that, yes, if you look at everything Bergoglio has said, oftentimes you'll come across stuff where he will speak positively about proclaiming the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't mean teaching people the truth about salvation, because for him, religion really isn't about salvation, as his comments in Singapore just proved yet again. And for those who are, maybe skeptical or unsure and who think, well, I don't think you should be, doubting Bergoglio's good intentions. And I'd like to point out that it is actually part of the modernist program to play both sides. And I'd like to just quote a few things from St. Pius X's anti-modernist encyclical Pascendi, which was released in 1907. And in paragraph 3 of that, he says, although they express their astonishment that we should number them amongst the enemies of the church, no one will be reasonably surprised that we should do so if, leaving out of account the internal disposition of the soul, of which God alone is the judge, he considers their tenets, their manner of speech, and their action. Nor indeed would he be wrong in regarding them as the most pernicious of all the adversaries of the church. For, as we have said, they put into operation their designs for her undoing, not from without, but from within. So this is really important. St. Pius X is saying, first of all, let's not, we're not trying to judge their souls. That's for God to do. What is internal, right? God sees the heart, God sees all of these things. But in terms of what is externally manifest, we have to say that not only are they enemies of the church, the modernists, they are the worst, the most dangerous enemies of the church. And we can know that when we consider not only their ideas, right, their tenets, but also their manner of speech, that is how they speak, how they talk, and their action, what they do. And so, and the fact that they're inside the church, they're hidden, they're hiding inside the church, especially back in 1907, he's talking about the classical modernists who weren't necessarily coming right out and saying, "Oh yeah, we're modernists," right? But that they were trying to remain in the bosom of the church and always just escape condemnation, always just escape some kind of disciplinary sanction. And then if they were caught on something, that maybe make a quick retraction, but only to remain in the good graces of the church, and then keep at it in some underhanded way, some obscure way. That was the problem, right? And that's why he's saying these people are the worst enemies of the church. They're hiding inside the church, and they are destructive not only in what they believe, but in how they communicate that and in what they do. And in paragraph 18 of the same encyclical, St. Pius X addresses the external appearance of inconsistency on the part of the modernists. He says, this will appear more clearly to anybody who studies the conduct of modernists, which is in perfect harmony with their teachings. In their writings and addresses, they seem not unfrequently to advocate doctrines which are contrary one to the other, so that one would be disposed to regard their attitude as double and doubtful. But this is done deliberately and advisedly, and the reason of it is to be found in their opinion as to the mutual separation of science and faith. Now here, St. Pius X is speaking specifically about the classical modernists, whereas nowadays it would be more accurate to call them neo-modernists, because they've, it's not exactly the same as what St. Pius X was condemning. There have been variations and different nuances and so forth, but it's still the same underlying principles that are at work. And so St. Pius X continues, thus in their books one finds some things which might well be approved by a Catholic, but on turning over the page, one is confronted by other things which might well have been dictated by a rationalist. Rationalist, someone who doesn't believe in any kind, who doesn't hold any kind of faith and thinks everything is just a matter of reason. So he's pointing out, St. Pius X is pointing out that the modernists will contradict each other. Will contradict themselves, okay, from one page to another even,
right?
Right? And so, yes, they can appear very Catholic in one, on one page actually of the same book, and then very anti-Catholic on the next page. And it will be a mistake to think that therefore, oh, they're confused, they don't really know, don't do it. Look at what they're saying and how they're saying it and what they do. And so, in other words, measure these things by, obviously somebody actually can be confused and could, be merely mistaken about something. But then if, let's say, somebody, some cleric writes something that is ambiguous, and then he gets called out on it, and he immediately corrects it and takes steps to ensure that from henceforth he is going to be clearly Orthodox, then, well, that's fine. That's one thing. That shows a genuine Catholic spirit at work. If, on the other hand, the same cleric continually writes ambiguously and gives all sorts of reasons to believe that he is advancing a heterodox opinion that he will then sometimes appear to contradict with orthodoxy, then you're dealing with a modernist. It's not someone who is trying to be orthodox, but someone who's ambiguous deliberately. And that's exactly what you have in Francis. We've had over 11 years of this. Okay.
Do you think it's connected? Do you think it's connected with Marxists or communists? I mean, is it a coincidence that they seem to share a lot of the same tricks or ideals, or do you think there is actually kind of an undermining? There was an actual plan. You see, what was it? Bella Dot. These other stories of communist infiltration.
Oh, yes. Well, you see, I mean, communists are materialists. They don't believe in God, and that works. That actually would jibe with that, because ultimately the modernist doesn't believe in God either. I mean, he might believe in God as, like on the books, so to speak. The modernist might profess belief in God, but at the end of the day, when you understand modernism and how it works, it's atheism, and that's of course exactly what St. Pius X was saying. It's an agnosticism. It's just it completely dismantles not even just Catholicism, but the very notion of revealed religion, of supernaturally revealed religion. The idea that God reveals himself to man and passes to or gives to man a deposit of faith, of truths that must be believed, and that remains true for the remainder of eternity. That the modernist doesn't believe that. In fact, one of the errors condemned in the anti-modernist syllabus of St. Pius X is precisely the error that dogmas are not truths fallen from heaven, so to speak. That's in the Lamentabili Sane. And see, the problem is the modernist will affirm, or also the neo-modernist will affirm dogma, will affirm belief in dogma, but for him, the very notion of dogma is a different one from the Catholic notion. And so he can outwardly say he believes a dogma, and yet it wouldn't mean what a Catholic means by that.
Because it's not based on faith. That totally makes sense.
Divine revelation, yeah.
In divine revelation, right? So it's interesting. I mean, it's something that I want to have to talk to Father McKenna about that, about talking about rationalism, because I think that's a really good point, and how it's one of the big, I don't know, philosophies, but ways of thinking that connects with modernism. I mean, relativism. I guess there's a bunch of different ones that kind of come together. I mean, that way, and Pius X said that, right? It's the formation of all, or coming together of all heresies. I forget the exact word, but but no, I think it's interesting. And I guess, do you think, and I don't know, you can't really answer this, I suppose, but do you think that modernism now, you mentioned that it's different. Do you think it's worse than it was, say, back in 1903? I mean, it's a hard question, I suppose, but.
Well, yes, I think it's worse because it is more hidden still. It is more nuanced and stuff in the, part of the, it's hidden in the new theology, the ressourcement theology. So, for example, what Father Garrigou-Lagrange immediately recognized in Father Henri Bouillard's thesis, that the content of doctrine is one thing, and then the expression of it is another. Once you separate that, you're ultimately looking at unknowable divine revelation, even though that was not Father Bouillard's position, that dogma or whatever, that truth is unknowable, but it leads to that, right? But yes, I would say that neo-modernism nowadays is more sinister still than modernism. Yeah, classical modernism was much more blunt. I would say that just they would hold that dogmas are just a symbol, for example, and you still have some classical modernists, but it's way more refined. In other words, I would say that the modernists learned to hide their errors better, to camouflage them better, and they remained in, they went underground, I guess. But the problem is that somebody can be a modernist internally and yet feign on the outside, feign Catholicism, right? And then this way he can remain in the Catholic seminaries and in the universities and so on. And then later, when the time is right, so to speak, come out. And I think that's what we saw with, especially at Vatican II. But also, that's why you had this crisis of the new theology, especially in the 1940s, when so many condemned ideas were being put forward under the pretext of returning to the sources of theology. But that's really a whole nother topic, but a very interesting one. I would like to, if I could, I want to draw attention to Pope Pius XII's encyclical Humani Generis again. That was published in 1950, and it was essentially the Pope's response to the new theology. It's not a very long encyclical, but it is so good. It is so powerful. It is a joy to read from beginning to end. And I remember trying to highlight the best passages, and in the end I stopped because I said, I'm highlighting everything. So Humani Generis was a fantastic refutation, or at least condemnation of the errors of a lot of the errors of the new theology, including existentialism and historicism, which is so bad, so still with us today, worse than ever before, and that in the end leads to things like what Bergoglio said. In the end, it is dogmatic relativism, and that's what Pius XII actually said in paragraph 16. In paragraph 16, quote: "It is evident from what we have already said that such tentatives not only lead to what they call dogmatic relativism, but that they actually contain it." Unquote. So what he had said about having the mysteries of faith on the one hand, and then on the other hand the expression and the concepts that communicate that truth of the faith, or that mystery of the faith. Once you say that once you separate those two, and you say that, well, the language or the expression of the content is never quite adequate, it's always it's conditioned by the times we live in, and it can change. Once you say that, you're going to have dogmatic relativism. In other words, what is dogma, is relative to the time in which you live. And so Pius XII was very much faced with a resurgence of modernism. And although, he did some things, especially in terms of speeches, addresses, and documents, encyclical letters, and so forth, he unfortunately didn't do nearly enough of what it would have taken to combat that. And I'd like to say this is very relevant to what we're talking about with Bergoglio in Singapore. In paragraph 27 of Humani Generis, Pius XII says, quote, "Some reduce to a meaningless formula the necessity of belonging to the true church in order to gain eternal salvation," unquote.
He doesn't even do that.
I mean,
he doesn't even have a formula.
Come on. To a meaningless formula.
Right.
It's if what Bergoglio says is true, that he should be the first one to move out, and just say, okay, let's just shut it all down,
Right.
But for him, most of what he cares about is not religious at all. It's just temporal problems, right? Social inequalities or social injustices, and social things that could be improved, and
Mother Earth, right? Pachamama. Yeah, I mean, he's a pagan. He's a straight up pagan. I mean, I think you could have a better argument to say that he is a pagan witch doctor than to say that he's the Pope. And it sounds absurd, but I mean, when you actually look at it, it's like, come on, look at what he says. I mean, someone mentioned, I think somewhere in the comments, about what was it that he said in one of his, I think it was one of the encyclicals to hug a tree. I forget it. So someone in the comments, let me know if you remember what it was, but it's absurd. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, in the Apostolic Exhortation Corrida Amazonia, there is one paragraph in which he talks about entering into communion with the forest.
That's it. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's what in an encyclical
exhortation, but
okay, okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Yeah. Let me see. I collected a few quotes that I'd like to share from certainly from sacred scripture. Oh, and then I wanted to also just draw attention to Pius VI, Auctorum Fidei. I mean, hopefully nobody who's listening right now, or to this show, needs evidence that our Lord Jesus Christ taught that there is only one true religion, only one path to heaven. Okay, but just in case, I'd like to make people aware of a few important quotes from the New Testament. Okay, so John 4:24, God is a spirit, and they that adore him must adore him in spirit and in truth. In truth. Okay. John 14:6, Jesus saith to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. I mean, that's right there. Right? Our Lord said, I am the only way. This is it.
And just to clarify again, Bergoglio says that you can come to God through a four-armed elephant, with tattoos. So just remember, compare
language,
this, guys. Right? Yeah.
It's just a different language, Kevin.
Right. Yeah. Same thing.
Come on. Our Lord says in Matthew 21:43 and 44, therefore I say to you, he's talking to the Pharisees, I think, or to the Jews, that the kingdom of God shall be taken from you, and shall be given to a nation yielding the fruits thereof. And whosoever shall fall on this stone, speaking of himself, shall be broken. But on whomsoever it shall fall, it shall grind him to powder. Then we have Acts 4:12, St. Peter in front of the Sanhedrin. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is no other name under heaven given to men whereby we must be saved. Of course, he's speaking of our Lord. St. Paul in Galatians chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. But though we or an angel from heaven preach a gospel to you besides that which we have preached to you, let him be anathema. As we said before, so now I say again, if anyone preach to you a gospel besides that which you have received, let him be anathema. So he's actually saying it twice. And then 2 John 9, and this is what Sean was referencing earlier. And I'm using the Monsignor Ronald Knox translation here for this one because it's just so much easier. That's also an approved Catholic translation pre-Vatican II. The man who goes back, who is not true to Christ's teaching, loses hold of God. The man who is true to that teaching keeps hold both of the Father and of the Son. And then, of course, there are countless passages in the New Testament about warnings about false teachers, and in latter days, people having itching ears and heaping upon themselves teachers of a different gospel and so on. It's that's exactly what Francis is doing, and honestly, look, everybody knows it, right? Some might feel the need to spin a lot, but I think it's pretty evident to an unbiased person who's not trying to spin one way or another, who has no agenda. The man Francis is simply not a Catholic.
But wasn't it Putin who said that? Well, I think it was Putin. It was a couple years ago. It was like, what do you say? Or no, where was it? See, I can't remember. Mario, you always remember these quotes, but there was some world leader who was like, is he even a Christian or something like that? Do you remember what I'm saying? There was some quote from some world leader. I want to say it was Putin. Either way, and I've seen it in the last few days as well. I've seen non-Catholics. I've seen people, again, in the news world or whatever, coming out and saying, hey, this doesn't sound like he's even Christian.
Well, look, and Francis has explicitly said that he's not interested in converting Protestants to Catholicism. He said that multiple times. He's told Muslims to basically find their spiritual guidance in the Quran, and to keep reading the Quran. He's told Buddhists to study whatever the life or the ideas of their master Buddha. It's all documented. It's all there. And so I wanted to bring up what St. Pius X said there about modernists doing that on purpose. Like they will, on one occasion they will sound Catholic, and then on another completely heretical, and that is by design. And after 11 years of Francis, it's by design. It's the fact that he will say something, that is very ambiguous and then not clarify what he meant again and again and again shows that he wants the ambiguity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Let me bring up Auctorum Fidei, and I'm going to send you the link. I'm not sure if I've sent it to you. Auctorum Fidei was an apostolic constitution of Pope Pius VI. It was written in response to the Synod of Pistoia in Italy. The synod took place in 1786. Pistoia is a town in Tuscany in Italy, and it was a regional council, right? So can't remember now who the bishop was, but in any case, this council, this regional synod, issued a number of teachings and points of reform, and it was a kind of prototype of Vatican II. There is actually a book out on this, and let me see if I have it here. I can't. I think it's just called the Synod of Pistoia and Vatican II. But sorry, I'm not prepared for this one. I'm drawing a blank. In any case, there are plenty of parallels. So that synod in Pistoia cranked out a number of errors that were later condemned by Pope Pius VI. Now, unfortunately, it took a while. There are at least 85 errors that were condemned by the Pope pertaining to that synod. And the errors are all listed in Denzinger. If you have a copy of Denzinger, the Sources of Catholic Dogma, in the old numbering, it begins at number 1501. I don't know what it is in the new numbering, but you can see the Auctorum Fidei was issued on August 28th, 1794. So that's roughly 8 years after the synod took place. And that document has a preamble, right? Before all the errors are listed that are condemned. The Pope just wrote a preamble, like a little introduction. And that introduction is available on Novus Ordo Watch. Some years ago, I had an expert in ecclesiastical Latin translate it because I could not find it translated anywhere in full. And so let me see. Let me look at your. Oh, perfect. Okay, Kevin, if you click on the where it says click to download,
Yep.
you could go ahead and do that. It'll bring up the translation of that preamble.
Mm-hmm.
It's not long, and it is phenomenal. It is very, very relevant to our times. And I'm not going to read the whole thing now, but I'd like to point out the highlights, which I've also got quoted on the Novus Ordo Watch page. And oh, I'm sorry. I guess did it download it? I was kind of hoping it would open it for you.
Oh, did it not open? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Here I was on my screen. It shows it as being there. Give me a sec. Let's see. How do I do this?
And by the way, are you coming back at all, like your face, or?
I don't think so. It is
Okay.
gone. Like that. It's so like it. My laptop camera doesn't work. Nothing works. I don't know if it's the platform, but yeah, I apologize. But
okay, wonderful. Yeah, so that is the text of the preamble, and we'll put the link in the show notes. It's a wonderful preamble. But anyway, let me quote some highlights. So the Pope Pius VI is speaking of a dreadful and never-ending conspiracy against the very body of Christ. Okay, so note well, all of you people who always sneer at every mention of a conspiracy or something. Conspiracies, there have been plenty of conspiracies in history, including church history. Right? Okay, so the Pope is rebuking the former Bishop of Pistoia, and he's saying that this bishop embarked on confusing, destroying, and utterly overturning sound Christian doctrine by introducing troublesome novelties under the guise of a sham reform. Okay, sounds very much like Vatican II already, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, so the reason this preamble is so important to us today is because it sounds like it was written for our times, right? And so Pius VI goes on to rebuke the bishop for using this strategy that allowed him to inject into the body of Christ, or at least in a sphere of influence, all kinds of errors while still sounding pious and orthodox. And so he speaks of the participants there at the Synod of Pistoia when he says, quote, "In order not to shock the ears of Catholics, the innovators sought to hide the subtleties of their tortuous maneuvers by the use of seemingly innocuous words, such as would allow them to insinuate error into souls in the most gentle manner. Once the truth had been compromised, they could, by means of slight changes or additions in phraseology, distort the confession of the faith that is necessary for our salvation, and lead the faithful by subtle errors to their eternal damnation," unquote. What immediately comes to mind is subsists in, right? Right.
Yeah.
The error that the Church of the Church of Christ subsists in the Catholic Church. Vatican II, I'm talking about, right? And then Pius VI further, he says, "This cannot be excused in the way that one sees it being done under the erroneous pretext that the seemingly shocking affirmations in one place are further developed along orthodox lines in other places, and even in yet other places corrected, as if allowing for the possibility of either affirming or denying the statement, or of leaving it up to the personal inclinations of the individual. Such has always been the fraudulent and daring method used by innovators to establish error. It allows for both the possibility of promoting error and of excusing it," unquote. It's just that's exactly what's been happening in our
Nothing
day.
new under the sun, huh?
No. That's exactly what it is, right? All I'm going to say is hermeneutic of continuity.
Right.
All the people that keep mentioning about, oh, we have to interpret, this, whatever they come up with, like hermeneutic of charity and versus hermeneutic of suspicion. You know what? Why doesn't the whoever is writing this, why did it just write in an orthodox way instead of putting the burden on the reader to read it in an orthodox way? It's as if people could not express clearly what they mean.
Right.
As if it's always ambiguous. Well, it
Well,
wasn't that way for Pius IX.
Well, right. Well, and exactly. I mean, the church was founded by Christ to lead us to heaven, right? To help guide us to eternity and to God. And I how does it make any sense, again, just practically, if that church, which is divine, founded by Christ, is ambiguous, or it's not, one line says this, another line says this. It's absurd.
Yeah, and he's not even done yet. He speaks of the heretic Nestorius in the, what was that, 5th century, and he says that Nestorius expressed himself in a plethora of words, mixing true things with others that were obscure, mixing at times one with the other in such a way that he was able to confess those things which were denied, while at the same time possessing a basis for denying those very sentences which he confessed. In other words, he was playing both sides. He was using so many words that you could find something orthodox in them, and you could find something heretical in them. And then whenever the heretical stuff was brought up, he could just say, well, no, look at the orthodox stuff over here that I said. You're obviously not interpreting it right. It's a very, very diabolical way of teaching error, and you can only imagine how much damage this does if it's done by somebody claiming to be the Pope and who is recognized as the Pope, right? And Pius VI, one last quote I want to mention is from this Auctorem Fidei. God forbid that the voice of Peter ever be silent in that see where, living and presiding perpetually, he presents the truth of the faith to those in search of it. Yeah, the see of Peter, by the way, is always the answer. It's never the problem. I mean, whenever you come across a text, a magisterial document or something, from that time, where these errors are confronted, and the Pope always says that it's the see of Peter that is the remedy, right? That this is where you can be sure that you're not going to be misled, and so on. You cannot. So that shows. Well, it confirms what I said earlier, that if you want to know whether Bergoglio is the Pope or not, all you need to do is read the traditional Catholic teaching on the papacy. There's no way you can fit Bergoglio into that. And so, that's, I think that's about all, we need to know to be able to expose Bergoglio as a false Pope, as a non-Catholic, one who teaches the most damnable errors and leads people to apostasy.
Well, and also, right, that you can't say he's the Pope and not follow him, right? Like, again, that last line is also extremely clear. I mean, I think that's a really great line against our good R&R friends, because it's you can't just say, oh, he's just a bad Pope, or and no, he is the truth. He is God's spokesperson on earth.
Yes, and he will be that perpetually.
Right.
A lot of people, like to bring up against sedevacantism that, well, you must have a perpetual line of succession. And when you look at Vatican I, at least the immediate context is one of, it's saying that whoever is Pope for the remainder of time, whoever is Pope has the same primacy that St. Peter had, right? That primacy, it doesn't vary from one Pope to another. And so that is true perpetually. Now, some have pointed out that there is still in Vatican I, or if not there, at least whatever in Catholic dogma, this teaching or this belief that you must, that there is an unbroken line of succession. So therefore, if there hasn't been a Pope an unbroken line of papal succession, so that if there hasn't been a pope since 1958, then it's broken or whatever. And I would just say, okay, let's say that that's definitely the case. I'm not entirely sure yet, just because I haven't studied it sufficiently yet. So I'm not saying that's not true, but let's just assume it for the sake of argument. The point is, though, that even if you would have to say, okay, well, fine, I don't quite know, how to resolve this. I don't know, where the next pope is going to come from. You're not going to solve that problem by saying that, therefore, Bergoglio must be the pope because we need an unbroken line of succession. Well, fine, we might need an unbroken line of succession, but it must be an unbroken line of succession of popes teaching the truth.
Right.
That's the whole point. Nobody needs a pope if he's just going to be like a Protestant pastor.
And I think, again, that's being generous to Bergoglio. He doesn't believe in anything.
Right. No, I guess I said that because oftentimes you will have the semi-trads, the recognize and resist people, treating Francis as if he were a Protestant pastor. In other words, they'll submit to him when they agree that what he says is true. Well, that's kind of what the Protestants do with their pastor, right? They all bring their Bible to church, and then if the pastor goes off the rails, then they'll say, well, no, that's not what I believe because it says right here in the Bible, so in their minds, the papacy is basically reduced to announcing something that everybody else already knows to be true anyway, and it's just a complete making the papacy meaningless and dangerous, and it's not saying that everything the Pope says or does is infallible. It has nothing to do with that, but it is certainly what the Pope promulgates in his magisterium is always going to be safe. It's going to be in harmony with the true faith, and at no point are the faithful going to have to disregard or contradict the papal magisterium because they found it to be heretical or in any way erroneous in a manner that could endanger the salvation of souls. I mean, it's just absurd. So sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. No, you're absolutely right, and I think that it's good to remember too that people like you, Mario, people our good traditional priests are teaching. They're telling what people should believe or trying to help people understand the truth by showing them what the church has taught. Now, I think if you look around YouTube, you'll find plenty of Pope explainers and others who are trying to just explain some stuff away. But Mario, I rarely see these guys using church teaching to try to explain things away. They're just trying to use logic or their own opinions or this is what you should think. But I rarely see it. And I don't watch these guys all the time, so I don't want to speak for all of them. But I think again that's what I appreciate about you, Mario. We just done 2 hours. And half of the time, more than half the time, it's quoting from encyclicals or from papal teachings, and I think that's what we need. Again, that's what I think. That's where the truth is. That the church has. I love what that this last encyclical. I keep forgetting the name, but from Paul VI, Pope Paul VI. They've covered it already. I'm shocked at what we just read. It's like that sounds like, as you said, that sounds exactly what we just went through 60 years ago.
But just for clarification's sake, it's Pius VI, not Paul VI.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, right. That would not be Paul VI, right? Exactly. He was not a pope. No, right. Apologies, right? It's late.
Right. So yes, just by way of summary, to those who would say, well, you always need to have a pope or whatever. Maybe so, but if so, it must be a Catholic pope. Otherwise, no, you don't need a pope. If he's not a Catholic and he's not doing what Catholic dogma says the pope does, and I don't mean what he's supposed to do, but what he actually does, then it's not the pope anyway. So in other words, this sort of what should I call it? Well, if if Francis is the Pope, then no, we don't need a Pope. But that's not what Francis is not what a Pope is, according to Catholic dogma
Right.
and doctrine, right? That's the point. So adhering to Francis or saying Francis is the Pope solves nothing. It's kind of like saying you can have, we always need the Catholic Church. Yes, agreed. But it can only be the Catholic Church if it's teaching the true faith. Nobody needs a shell that says Catholic Church on it and then teaches Freemasonry, right? Naturalism or something. Then what would the label do?
Right.
So hopefully this is becoming more clear to people. I know it's all very confusing. It's depending on, how long you've been dealing with these things. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have just recently kind of woken up to the reality that something is really wrong here. So I totally get that it's difficult, it's frustrating, it's agonizing. And I'm not trying in any way to, make light of that or anything. And, I've had my own personal conversion. I used to be with the SSPX, not as a member, but as just someone who attends their parish for a little bit, a long time ago. But at the end of the day, I think education, or just if you educate yourself in the pre-Vatican II faith using the old books, the old theology books, and the old papal encyclicals, the magisterial documents, that's your best way to escape the Novus Ordo Church, the Novus Ordo religion. Those two are just not compatible. And you know what? Before we go, let me make reference to that was in the 18th century. What Francis said with regard to all religions being a path to God, that's very much what first really gained ground in the 18th century with the so-called Enlightenment, and then later with the French Revolution. And there was a Freemason by the name of Gotthold Lessing in the 18th century,
Nice name.
born in 1729 and died in 1781. And Kevin, are you familiar with him?
I am not.
Okay, well, he's German. He was German.
It sounded like it.
Right, Gotthold Lessing. And so he was a dramatist and a literary and art critic. He was a playwright. And so he wrote a play called Nathan the Wise, Nathan der Weise. And part of that play, the whole play is basically about religious tolerance, right? And how we all just get along. And I thought of that when I examined Bergoglio's words there about all religions lead to God. Part of Lessing's Nathan the Wise is something called the ring parable, or the parable of the ring. And I can't quite, you'd have to look it up in Wikipedia because I can't put it back together with sufficient accuracy now. But the moral of the story, as they say, the point the parable is trying to teach is that at least the three monotheistic religions, right? Christianity / Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam, that they're all that nobody really knows which of them is true, and we should just respect and tolerate each other and all just try to live good lives, because then in the end surely we'll be pleasing to God, and then it won't matter which religion was true. That's kind of the moral, or the point the parable is teaching, the ring parable. And that is pretty much, I think, what Bergoglio is getting at. Don't fight over it. Don't sweat it. Whatever, your God, my God. My religion is true, yours is false. All that's going to do is lead to division and destruction. And let's all just try to be nice to each other.
But it's like a reverse Lutheranism, right? It's kind of like, it's like good works alone, right? You don't need faith. Just be good.
Pelagianism, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right. That's right. So for Bergoglio, you don't need faith. You don't need hope. You only need charity. But it's it's not a supernatural charity, because supernatural charity is not possible without faith, right? So yeah, it's salvation by works totally, salvation by compassion, whatever is salvation by works of mercy. If he even believes in salvation, I see very little reason to believe that he does. But yes, so anyway, the parable of the ring of Gotthold Lessing is very much, I think, what Bergoglio is ultimately believes. I think in general, you can say he's just not into religion that much.
No, I think he really is much more of a tree hugger. I mean, I did a show with Intro Ebo a while back about how, you know, he has a witch doctor. You know, I forget exactly what they're called, but someone who's like a chakra or whatever. Someone who, like, his doctor who comes in and treats him is some like Hindu guy. I mean, and I'm sorry, that's weird. I mean, that I don't care who these people are. You can't do that if you're a.
Oh, wait, are you referring to something you saw on Novus Ordo Watch? Because I did mention that.
Did you too? We may have mentioned it, but I know for sure I did a show with Intro Ebo at Altari Day.
Oh, that's right. You
Blogger.
mentioned Intro Ebo. Okay, well, let me send you the link, because I got a great picture with it too, even though the picture is not related to when he said that. January 15th, 2018 is when I posted about it, and it is titled Francis, and then it's quoting Francis. I don't go to the doctor, I go to the witch. Okay. Yes.
Crazy.
Yes, he actually said that. He said that on a plane, one of those plane press conferences. I like to say it was aboard Airhead 1. You know, I'm sorry, you just can't take that guy seriously.
Wow.
Yes, he was asked about how is it that, you know, at your age you have all this energy and stuff, and Andrea Tornielli wrote about it. He is now the, oh gosh, what is he? I think he's the editor-in-chief of Vatican News or something. And it says, actually, might as well quote from it here. Loud laughter accompanied the joke Francis made in answer to a question posed to him by the journalist Cristiano Caricato of TV 2000, who, greeting him, asked him what the doctor gives him to be able to face such long journeys. We want to know what the doctor gives you so that we can take it too, we who struggle just as you do. A reference to Bergoglio's stamina during these trips. But I do not go to the doctor, I go to the witch, he said, laughing heartily. I think the joke is on someone else here.
Oh my.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't. You really can't, man. Yeah. Crazy. Well, Mario, as always, it's been a great pleasure. More from my side than yours, probably. Always having to deal with me. Mario, next time, I promise you, I will have a different camera that works. This is not going to happen again. Mario, we greatly appreciate you. I know everyone in the chat does as well.
Kevin, do you need some financial help to afford a new camera?
Well, you know, now that you speak of that, like and subscribe. No, and everyone you can, if you do want to contribute to this channel. We have a lot of different material. Anyone who follows us knows that we do different stuff all the time. We love having on Mario. We've had on Louis Verrecchio. John hopefully comes back. It was great having him on. Father Ojeka has had material here as well. Many other people. We have daily material, and it does take a lot of work. So if you want to support us, get me a new camera, go to Patreon. And do it there. That would it would be a great help. And please, of course, support Mario, novusordo.org. He does the dirty work so we don't have to. And I mean, wow, the fact, Mario, you said you read all of the statements of Bergoglio on that trip. That's remarkable and horrible. Like I could never possibly do that. So we appreciate you. I know people in the chat do as well. Everyone really do sincerely remember that if you do like what Mario brings, what he does, we really should support him. I think it's so easy to forget that because we have so much stuff for free. You know, you go on YouTube and, oh, there's a video. You go to Novus Ordo Watch. Oh, there's an article. Especially, Mario actually does need support. Like actually, I mean, I think that's something it's so easy to forget that because you can get it for free. It's not behind a paywall, which I think is fantastic. And thanks to Mario for that.
And I'm very happy to be able to provide that, in a way that is free to everyone, in the sense that it's freely accessible, because it needs to be, right? And so I very much appreciate anybody who is able and willing to support it financially, but also, of course, with prayers and sacrifices, spiritually. So a big thank you to anyone who does support Novus Ordo Watch, and anyone who would like to but can't, because
Right.
I'm sure there are a lot of people like that as well, and I totally understand that we have tough times economically, and so thank you all for your goodwill and for your help.
And also, please, you can give $5. I mean, really, same on Patreon. You want to give, don't feel like you have to do $50 a month. Do two. Give me $2 a month. I'm super happy with that on Patreon. That really is it's a big help. And if you get enough people, it does actually help pay for the streaming services, etc. So, and I'm sure with Mario is the same. If you can give $5, give $5. It really is. It is also just the I guess the feeling that matters. You see it as like, oh wow, someone's supporting me, and we also both do need to eat as well. Mario, as always, again, thank you so much. And again, everyone, please go check out wmreview.org and also Father Ojeka's book. I'll bring it up once more. It is My Treasured Mistake. I've started reading it, and it's really, really good, really interesting. And again, just an incredible journey. 9 years in a Novus Ordo seminary in Nigeria, and eventually made his way to become a traditional Catholic priest. Now, again, in Nigeria under Bishop Nkamike. One of my favorite priests, really love him, and the book is fantastic. So go check that out. GloriousHeritageBooks.com. Mario, until next time, take care.
Thank you.
And maybe next
Very
time
nice.
you'll see me. Everyone in the chat. Thank you guys. We
Sounds
appreciate
great.
you all.
Thank you,
And
everyone.
please,
God
and as
bless you.
Mario said, please say a prayer for the two of us as well. It is a crazy world, and we need your prayers just as much
Yes.
as anybody. Mario, until next
Thank
time.
you.
God bless you.